Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, is it finally the last call for Texas Tech's portal party, and we buckle up for the incoming hoopla storm? Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money today. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. A man who said recently he's got more logs to throw on that portal party fire. We're not going to let it die just yet, and we'll get back into a little bit of that mode on today's episode. I also want to look into the future as a result of some of these portal efforts, not only really on the football front, but men's basketball as well. Some hoopla incoming. You might call it hype. I like hoopla. It's just fun to say. We'll talk about what will be some interesting buildups to these seasons for both of these programs coming up a little bit later on down the road. I do want to consider whether or not we are nearing finally, at long last, a last call. I could give you some various points along the timeline where I thought, all right, that's a nice ribbon on this class. Okay, wait, here's another ribbon. Oh, wait, there's a ribbon too. Oh, here's a bow that's going to kill some quarterbacks. You know how it's gone. So we'll get into some of that as the picture nears completion. And to kick off that portion of the conversation, we'll get back to the latest fuel added to that fire, Chris, and that was in the form of some more help among the pass catchers for Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders in the form of Roy Alexander. So curious to hear from you again. You sent out a short reaction yesterday on YouTube. If you hadn't seen that, check it out. But curious for some more thoughts on this edition and how you see him fitting in 2025.
The ribbon? Who doesn't want to wear the ribbon? Right.
Everybody wants the ribbon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So this was a clear want/need. This is not a secret. This is something that I think they had expressed interest on privately, publicly, whatever, for, I don't know, maybe since even before the spring started. And I think, because it's just funny, you just look at the classification of your receivers. I mean, you've got Caleb Douglas is a senior, Price Morgan's going to be a senior, Reggie Virgil is going to be a senior, and now Roy Alexander is going to be a senior. You only have one junior on your team, and that's Coy Eaken. And then there's just a bunch of young and inexperienced potential, which now includes Micah Hudson. So I could even see you maybe portaling again after the season as it relates to receiver. But let's get to Roy Alexander a bit. I think what you added here, I don't know that Roy Alexander is this like immensely talented freak that runs by people or has all world size. I think he's just a good, like, solid, dirty work culture kind of guy that has experience. He can go up and get it. He's sure-handed. I mean, he had, I think, 31 15-plus yard catches last year at Incarnate Word. And there will be some that say, he's Incarnate Word. I mean, the competition is, Cam Ward kind of knocks that theory out of the sky or certainly opposes it, as he was just the number one player picked in the draft. He once played at Incarnate Word for Mac Leftwich and Eric Morris. But this is a nice piece to, and it's tricky, like for a guy like Roy Alexander. His life is drastically about to change because he's got to very quickly, because typically slot is one of the, in most schemes, it is one of the more difficult positions to learn quickly. there, I know there's some Incarnate Word connections with Mac Leftwich and then Roy Alexander. However, there was no crossover there. This is he's going to have to come in and learn this offense. But you're allowed to do some things in the summertime. You're allowed to have football school, and you're allowed to have some classroom stuff and even some limited on the field activity, which will allow him to catch up after having missed the spring. And be a part of it. I don't know if you've added a starter, a heavy contributor, an insurance policy, all the above, but it was something you were going to add in some form or fashion. You were going to seek somebody that filled this void, and you've done that. I think Alexander could be a potential factor in the return game, but I think right now you're thinking about primarily being a option as a slot receiver that allows you to do some different things with, Terrence Carter, or it allows you to keep Jacoby Williams at running back, or it allows you to let Coy Eaken play outside some, to allow your younger players to kind of come along for the ride. But I think Roy Alexander, a lot of football IQ with this player. And that's what makes me feel pretty good about what you've added, in that he won't need a lot of time. This is a very smart kid and is here for the right reasons. He wants to win a championship, and he sees the need. He wanted to play at a higher level. It's a win-win for all involved here.
Is he a crafty guy? I'm kind of thinking about losing a guy like Josh Kelly, who by the point in which he was in his career showing up at Tech, he was a clever football player. I mean, they just know things that, rookies or other guys that maybe don't quite have that IQ or instinct, whatever you want to call it, would have. So I kind of wonder, as you're describing him, if maybe he's one of those types of guys, which you always love to have, not only on the field, but on the sideline, in the ear of everybody, locker room, whatever it might be.
Fair to suggest. I mean, I think he has been at the level he's been playing at. I think it just remains to be seen, what it looks like at this level. He's going to have the benefit of having a lot of good people around him. It's not like, because I think at the level he was just at, he was kind of the focal point, and he still put up numbers. Well, I mean, you're not doubling Roy Alexander. You're not putting your best defender, your fastest defender on Roy Alexander, Reggie Virgil and Caleb Douglas, and then all the other various weapons that you've got. But you can see film from him last year going down the field. You can see him coming across the middle. He goes up and gets it. He makes the tough catches, and so we'll just kind of see what it looks like now, which begs the question. Okay, Chris, are they done? Is this it? Are we finished? I'm
Is
not.
That how I
I'm
sound?
Not, no, I was talking. That's me talking to myself.
Sorry, I thought that was an impression.
That was like question. That was like the angel and the devil, like the portal voices on each of my shoulders. I don't know. I don't think there's any sort of imminent addition / need. I think this was, but you just never know. And like you said, Cowan, I think that you keep thinking like, okay, this is the best class, and then they keep just sprinkling goodies on top of it. Right. Whether it's just glorious cream gravy with a lot of bacon grease and milk and flour involved, or whether it's just that icing that you like, whatever yours on your favorite cake out there. Because these are some, David Bailey being the best one, but you've sprinkled in some goodness here late in the process, and it's just crazy to look at how many players graduated and also players that you lost in the portal. I mean, you're talking close to like 50 people have exited this program, 50, due to graduation and then hitting the portal. And very, very few of them, graduation is a non-negotiable, because you would have loved to have had Taj Brooks and all the players back, Josh Kelly and whatever. But very few of those that you lost, as we've talked about. I mean, it hurt my heart to watch a guy like Adedire and Isaac Smith leave. Nick Fattig has ended up at Stanford. Dylan Shaw has ended up at North Texas. LJ Johnson ends up at Texas State. A lot of players that you've lost haven't ended up anywhere. And I think that's what you get as much credit for James Blanchard or Joey McGuire or the football program in general, as you really kept your roster intact. There just wasn't, other than maybe somebody like Fatig, there wasn't somebody that you were just like, damn, this puts us in a bit of a pickle here. I mean, Jordan Sanford, I don't know if you were like shoving him out the door, but that number is really, really small. And Fatig probably headlines that list. And he was a potential starter / depth piece that you have since replaced with Cash Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, there's some you're kind of building up towards the hoopla portion of the conversation, because you usually don't see numbers like that leaving a program and then think, all right, now we're building a Big 12 title contender in one off season. But in this era, things can change quickly. We'll get to the hoopla in just a second, but it's wild, the process. So many guys in and out the door, and what you have seen walk out, what that would mean in another cycle, what you've seen now be added in this cycle, and what we hope that means for the fall. And as for the latest in Roy Alexander, I'm always ready to ride with a Roy. There have been some bad boys out there who have carried the name Roy, including a good friend of mine from Sudan, Texas, America. He's a lover, fighter, wild horse rider, pretty fair windmill man too. But I've enjoyed watching some Roys play football before, so glad to have him on the roster. And Chris, could I ask you, if everybody's healthy, you know the names and you know some of the intentions around what they want them to be. Everybody healthy week 1. Could you give me 2 outside, 2 inside you think would be the first 4 on the field? First, today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it can be easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. You're going to love the all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money today. Use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com and our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for half off your first year. Everybody healthy week 1. Could you give me 2 outside, 2 inside you think would be the first 4 on the field?
And I will say, speaking of Roy, I've never felt more like a king in the world than I was probably an 8-year-old out to dinner with my folks on a Friday night, and it was like, drink order, time to lay it on the waiter or waitress. Roy Rogers, please. And I mean, when they bring that thing over there and they drop that cherry in there, and you feel like you're the king of the castle. I'll have some extra of that red stuff in there, because I'm not driving tonight. Anyway, I could vividly remember being in a Mexican restaurant named Dos Hermanos with my parents, and I got me a Roy Rogers. It was every Friday night, and boy, I was puffy chested. I felt like, man, this world ain't big enough for me, because give me a double. Anyway, okay. Well, I mean, I think at this point, I would say this is about personnel groups as much as anything. But I mean, to me, you're dealing with Reggie Virgil and Caleb Douglas as starters. I think Coy Eaken is a starter. I think either John Carlos Miller or Terrence Carter are starters. So one or the other. If they're both in, then maybe Eaken is not in. But that's how I would view that.
Well, and that's sort of on me to think in an antiquated way about a collection of wide receivers that would strictly be viewed as 4, when now you've got a flex kind of tight end that we've seen in the mix also. And I was going to say, I think it gets pretty easy. I think, again, if everybody just has good luck from a health standpoint, we're all available 1 through 3. But I was wondering who that next name would be, tight end wild card thrown into the mix, which, given what we've seen previously, even though we've got to change at offensive coordinator, given what we've seen previously, kind of seems like something reasonable to expect. And I like it, by the way, because you want to win, throw it to the tight end. I know you abide by rhymes like that, right, Chris? I've heard you say it before, so let's get them in the mix. All right.
Yes.
I'm really curious to see how that group shapes out, man, because it's been a really interesting one as far as what's been discussed this year. Of course, most recently with the addition of not only Alexander, but the return of Micah Hudson. But we started it off with one of the more exciting additions overall, and Reggie Virgil. And I think a guy like Caleb Douglas, the arrow for him last year was just continuously trending upward as he really came on. So I'm optimistic, but you've got big and clutch type of shoes to fill with the departure of Josh Kelly. And that's not to mention some of those tight ends who have also been out the door.
And like Kelby Volson, I think that there's a lot of, with a lot of these guys, it's about potential and realizing said potential, and then it's about consistency. I think that, there's a reason that a lot of these guys I'm about to list off here were recruited here. And it's just a matter of, when does the light come on? When can they do it? When can they do it for real? When can they do it? I heard somebody talking about Kansas State the other day as a Big 12 title contender. And this is the example I'll use because the biggest question for Kansas State is probably Avery Johnson, their quarterback. But also they have a huge question at receiver. And one of the brightest spots, according to everybody in Manhattan, is a former Red Raider in Jerron Bradley. And he's just caught everything and all that. But I've seen that too.
Yeah.
I, however, did not see it during the fall. It's one thing to do it in April and March, and it's another thing to do it in August, and it's another thing to do it in September or in a cold, blustery day, in one of these Big 12 cities in November. And can you do it all the time? And so that's what TJ West's task is. Volson, Micah Hudson, incorporating his way back into the mix. Tyson Turner is another one. You've got Deaver and Leighton Stone that are options. Price Morgan is a guy that he's a senior because he came in from is Peyton Morgan's brother. And he's an older transfer from a smaller school, but he's somebody that people have forgotten about, but he's a senior too. And I don't know if he can get another year back or if this is it for him, but you'll hear his name quite a bit. But it's just some of these guys, it's about who's consistent, who can do it all the time, not just flash, not just show me that potential, who can make the easy play when the easy play needs to be made, not who can go up and get it in three people and wow you and all that. No, who can just catch it when it's thrown to him, who can get open consistently and all those things. Some of these guys will emerge. I just don't know if I'm prepared to say who yet. We can have our thoughts, we can have our opinions, but it'll be time for some of these guys but Roy Alexander now stretches this group a bit and gives you it takes some pressure off of all involved because now he's a bridge to the sure thing versus the group that just hasn't done it yet because he's clearly done it at the college level plenty for multiple years. And I mean, was he fifth in the country in touchdown catches last year at all levels? I mean, that dog will hunt. I mean, 1,000 yards is hard to do for a receiver these days. And he got that done as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Hoping that will translate to whatever extent in his time at Tech. And speaking of things translating, now for the hoopla, the hype, the build-up portion of the program. Chris, I'm already seeing this, and I'm conflicted on how it makes me feel, but we're going to be seeing it throughout the offseason, and we're going to hope that it translates into reality in the fall. But the build-up to this season will probably be unlike any other, at least within recent memory. Obviously, the additions that you've been able to make to the roster have put you in a different kind of category as far as contending for things within your conference and potentially something otherwise beyond that. But I think was it Andy Staples maybe I saw recently with a top 25 that had Texas Tech, I think at 11 or inside the top 15. And this is really, we may steer it more towards the football program today, but this is a conversation we can apply, I think, to Grant McCaslin's Red Raider basketball team as well, because there's going to be some high expectations nationally rolling into next season for them. But we're building up towards a Big 12 title contender or bust kind of conversation, I think. And I don't think anybody wants to shy away from that. So it won't be startling to those internally for the program. That's what they were working toward. But the talent infusion, man, has got you thinking that and just about nothing else. I think justifiably so.
I think ball knowers realize that you have a different level of athlete on your campus and in your football program now. Okay, the folks that know the sport, that know ball, all that stuff. I get the sense that there's some that don't follow the portal closely, look at this Texas Tech thing going, okay, we're hyping this group up again. I certainly understand that. I would say that there's a happy medium here between are you the favorite to win the Big 12? I don't know if I would be prepared to say that. And I'm not trying to sit here and protect my emotions or anything like that. I'm just saying, if I see an Arizona State that just won it, granted, you did beat them, but they won it. They've got their quarterback back, who is, thought to be a first-round type quarterback. They've got this receiver back that's thought to be a potential first-round receiver. They've got a lot back from a team that just won it. I'd have a hard time saying, how can they not be it? But what you've done here, without a doubt, you have put yourself in the very short conversation of title contenders, because I would be willing to bet you that in most preseason conference predictions, you are at the very worst fourth. I think that BYU will get a lot of credit, as they should. I think Iowa State should get a lot of credit, as they should, but I think you also have to have Kansas State up there too. And so there's your 4 or 5 programs right there that really have a lot to love, and most of those have done more than you have recently. There's just a segment of, okay, you can stick your neck out there and say that this team's going to win it, but they haven't ever done it before. These other teams have, or they've played for it or whatever. I certainly get that. And I'm back to the protecting my emotions thing. I'm actually okay if you're the back end of that top tier or top of the second tier as people talk about this stuff. I'm okay with that. I can't fight it or argue hard against it. I think that there will be some that will look to try to move Tech to the top of the list, and there'll be some that look to move Texas Tech to the bottom of the second tier. Like, come on. What are we doing? We're going to fall for this thing again? And at some point, you have to kick the door in. You just do. Otherwise, you don't deserve any sort of street cred. You don't deserve any sort of hype and pomp and circumstance or anything, because you keep, leading that horse to the pond, and then it keeps just drinking like crazy, and then it throws it up, as it walks back to the trough or whatever. So I don't know, man. I would probably have Arizona State as the league favorite on paper and otherwise, but you have legitimized yourself, and you have legitimized your candidacy as a Big 12 title contender. That part is without a doubt. And that's really the goal here. I saw somebody, and you saw this because I asked you about this. Somebody had an issue with, so that's all we're shooting for? No, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is you gotta get to this league championship, play for it, and try to win it before any of the other stuff even matters or even comes into play. If you do this, then all the other stuff comes into play. Of course, you want to go get in the playoff and win a national championship. Absolutely, but you gotta get in the conference championship and try to win that first. And if you do, it takes you to these other. It creates these other opportunities. But it's all about Arlington. That's really what this is all about. And short of being in Arlington, you're going to have fallen short here, and there's going to be a lot of investment and all that where you didn't get it done. But adversity will come at some point. Losses, just a funk, an injuries, maybe combination. The referee's going to screw it up at some point. What does that look like? How does this group deal with it? I mean, it will happen. Is it small or is it massive? Does it take your team totally off the tracks, or is it a blip on the radar, or do you overcome it? I mean, but that's what we're going to talk about for the next 3 to 5 months as we get ready for the season.
Yeah, and I think in large part it's also worth reminding yourself, and I'm saying this to myself as a fan. This is not a last one out, turn out the lights, or save the max dance-a-thon type of year. The program will continue to exist on the other side of this season, whether you reach expectations or fall short of those expectations. We're hoping it's the beginning of a more competitive era, but it's not a 2025 hardware or bust, we're shutting it down if we don't get it done type of situation, even though this buildup seems huge, and it is huge. I mean, there's motivation and resource like really never before, at least that I'm aware of, and it's come together to add up to this picture we have before us now. But you'll continue to pursue being competitive on the other side of this season, regardless of what the result is. I've got some strong faith in that. So looking forward to seeing how it plays out, and looking forward to the next round with you, Chris. Appreciate the time and the perspective as always, and we'll see you for the next one.
Mr. Belding, save the max.
They did it.
That's well done. Wasn't it like the 24-hour marathon or whatever?
Yeah, I think there were some crutches possibly involved. The sprain, something along that. I'm trying to say we're not in that. We don't have to have an all-night.
You're right. I just love the recall. That was a well-placed analogy. That's well done. Shout out to Kelly Kapowski.
Always.
Yeah, that's right. And forever. All right, we'll talk about this next time. And I would love to hear other people's thoughts too. Do you feel like you should be the title favorite to win the Big 12? Do you understand if you're picked 4th or 5th? I don't know. I'd be curious what our viewers and listeners would think about that, because it's a topic that will be debated, and there's really no wrong answer for the next 3 to 5 months. I heard so and so is getting bigger. Heard so and so looks good in practice. That's really all you've got to go off of now. But between now and when the ball gets kicked off and we start playing games.
Yeah, one man's disappointing transfer can be another man's fall camp breakout star. You just never know the way it might go. And we've probably been on both ends of that, just as everyone else has in this era of ease of movement, college sports. All right, for Chris, I'm Casey. Thank you all for being out there. As always, get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks to the everydayers for always riding along. And shout out to the Matador Mob as well. Your link to that in the show notes. Hit it for a free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time. And we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.